We're in number 4 in a series on plan or planning. I wanted to start the year talking about planning before we talked about vision, before we talked about purpose. All of them are important, but purpose will never realize vision, and vision will never realize its potential without purpose, without planning. So planning is very essential. It's essential for everything. So we took up this whole issue some weeks ago, and we started to talk about how that your life, our lives, really, whether people realize it or not, or are aware of it or not, our lives are not based on years. We think that. People are always thinking, how many years, and if you live a long life, you've had good years, or and I know the Bible says in Psalm 91, with a long life will I satisfy you and show you my salvation. So a long life and its potential is desirable, but truly potential is the key. Your life is about assignment. And so many of us, whether we realize it or not, we go through life not realizing that there is only a certain allocated number of days to our life. And the allocation of those days is to fulfill purpose. The allocation of those days is to fulfill the plan that God has for your life. And the only way to do that is to recognize that it is, recognize that you've got a limited period in which to do that, and then plan how you're going to do it. Find out what it is, plan how you're going to do it. And so a lot of people don't understand how important planning is. And before they realize it, half the life, as far as years are concerned, are gone. Or people waste their time. It is the most valuable commodity that you have because you need it in order to accomplish purpose or the plan or the agenda, the assignment that God has for your life. And so we took that whole issue up. The two things or the two elements that are necessary to fulfill the purpose in your life is time and change. Time is the duration over which you are given years to fulfill the purpose God has for your life. And change is the ability to navigate from where you are into the understanding and develop the skill set to accomplish it and finish it. So those two things, you can't stop them. You cannot stop time. You cannot stop change. But how you address those things will determine how successful your actual life becomes. Whether you've used the time and the change to fulfill the assignment for your life. Will you even bother to discover the assignment for it? And even if you did, would you plan for it? Because you never do it unless you plan. Planning is very much a part of the strategy of fulfilling the assignment for your life. So you can't just sit in the time glass like this and it's just ebbing away. And we got to get a hold of time, get a hold of change, get a hold of the purpose God has for our life, the assignment God has, and then use time and adapt change to fulfill that assignment. Everybody with me? All right. So, 2 Timothy 1:9, it says, who saved us and called us with a holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began. God planned before the world ever began. The very fact that we can plan is part of our divine makeup. Animals are instinctive in that they respond to seasons. If they hibernate or it's a good time to have young or so on and so forth. You got to eat more before the cold weather comes. That's instinctive. But they don't plan. They plan maybe seasonally for their procreation or advancement or their continuation, but they don't plan. Man is the only creature that can plan. And because there's a God factor in us. God plans. And God planned a purpose for our lives before we even existed. God had a plan. It says here in Ephesians 2:8, for by grace are you saved through faith. That's not of yourselves. It's a gift of God, not of works lest any man should boast. You say, well, it's great to be saved. I'm saved to go to heaven. Nah, you weren't saved to go to heaven. No, you weren't. Will you get to go to heaven? Only because Jesus is there for a period of time, but he's coming down here, and then we come back down here with him. But we weren't saved to go to heaven. We were saved to fulfill the purpose or the assignment that God had given to our lives. It was worth saving. It was worth fixing. And so it says, not of works lest any man should boast, for for being the reason we are saved, for being the reason that God advanced his grace toward us. For you are his workmanship, created in Christ unto good works, which again God had before planned, ordained that we should walk in them. Our life is the outworking of a plan. Our life is not about age, our life is about assignment. Time is given to us to fulfill that assignment. Change is given to us to adapt and develop, to accomplish that assignment also. We've got to harness both of them. You can't change them, but you do use them. You've got to use time and you've got to use change to get to your fulfillment of assignment. So, we said in closing last time, just don't procrastinate. Stop putting it off. We started 2022. Let's realize that, we're going to get the same 24 hours that everybody else gets. But you've got to understand that God has a plan for your life. He saved you for an assignment. And he's given you years and the ability to adapt and adopt change in order to accomplish that. Fix what needs to be fixed. Change what needs to be changed. Adapt and adopt and get on with it. And so let's not procrastinate. Let's not put it off till later, because times are fleeting by. I showed this last week, and I took all the oxygen out of the building, and it was a sort of there was a sobriety to it, only because we measured our days. And really they're not long. They're really not long. Just several thousand. I mean, if you live to be 100 years of age, you've only lived 36,000 days. I mean, the earth has just gone around, or the earth has just rotated once, 36,000 times. Just a rotation of the earth is a day. So if you live to be 100, you'll have experienced a 36,000 rotations of this planet. It's not a lot. And especially if you've lived many years, when you look at how many have I left, if I've got 10 or I've got 20, look at what it is. It's just days. It's only in thousands. And you got to use it. You got to not waste it. It's very, very valuable. And so, again, teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Teach us to understand this. Teach us to get a handle on this and not waste it. So, become aware of assignment and our assignment limitations. It says, wherefore he saith, awake out the sleepest, arise from the dead, Christ shall give thee light. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools but as wise, redeeming the time. You got to get it back. We've all wasted time in the sense of not knowing what our purpose was, or having a vision for our life, or a God-given assignment to our life. But even I was in my 20s before I give my life to Christ, but I can still see, even in prior to Christ's life, so to speak, that my gifts and graces were preparing me for what I'm doing today. Those things were there. Those abilities were being developed in me. Time and change was helping me to develop and use these gifts better. I eventually found God, and when I found God, I found the purpose of God and the plan and the assignment of God for my life. And when I look back at the years that I didn't know him personally or intimately, I can still see God's hand on my life by the gifts and graces and the skill sets that I had. So a lot of times you think, well, how can I get the years back? But when you look back at some of your years, or many of your years, you'll see that your graces and gifts were actually honing you, preparing you, training you, guiding you into an assignment. You may not have been aware of that assignment, so therefore it's hard to apply yourself to it. But when you get born again, God will give you back those years, and the things that you thought you wasted, you'll be amazed at what you've learned and can use or bring to bear in your skill set as you endeavor now to redeem that time. But you should redeem it, get it back, buy it back, build it back. It says in Psalm 19 verse 12, so teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom, or we'll be wise about what we've left, not what's past, but what's left. So don't waste it. We've wasted time, but let's use the time that we have. Let's double up on. Let God multiply our efforts and our energies, not just add to them, but multiply them, because he can do that. Or it says here in John 9:8, Jesus said, I must work the work of him that sent me while it is the day. The night cometh when no man can work. In other words, I got to work while I have the chance. Or I read a scripture to you from Ecclesiastes last week, and it says, while it is in your heart to do something here in life, do it with all your might. Do it with all your energy, all your ability, all your resources, because where we're going, the grave, you can't do it. When you're dead, it's over. When you're dead, it's finished. So while you're sucking oxygen and while you have health and strength, while you have your skill sets and your faculties, use it to advance God's plan for your life. So he says, the night comes when no man can work. But as long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. In other words, I'm going to keep shining. I'm going to keep doing what I'm here to do. But he understood, as long as I'm here, as long as I'm present, I'm going to work while I have the chance to do it, Jesus said. While I have the opportunity to do that. It's why the Bible tells us to pray for kings. Over in the book of Timothy, it tells us to pray for kings that we, the church, would live a peaceable life. Why? So that we can get on with our assignment, so that we can fulfill the purposes God have for all of our lives, so that we can accomplish and achieve God's desire for us. So we don't want all of the hassle and all of the other stuff going on. So where possible, let that peace reign, let governments allow us to get on and do what we need to do. It says here, John in verse 4, verse 34, Jesus said unto them, my meat, or what keeps me going, or what nourishes me, or what sustains me, or what satisfies me, my appetite for life is not food. My appetite for life is to do the will of him who sent me and finish the assignment. He said, that's what keeps me going. I don't get up and eat food for the enjoyment of food. I get up and eat food because I got to keep this body right so that I can fulfill the assignment. I get up and go to the gym, or I get up and go for a long walk, or I go to bed early and I get a good night's sleep. Not because I like sleep per se, or not because I just like to walk or hike, or because I like to go to the gym, or I do all of it because the truth of the matter is what nourishes me, Jesus said, what motivates me, what aspires me to get up every day and go every day and to keep myself well and healthy and strong is to do the will of him that sent me and finish the assignment. Paul made the similar statement over in 1 Corinthians 9, and he talked about everybody running in a race. Everybody running to win, and he says, but only one wins the prize. He says, when it comes to the things of God, he says, remember, people who are dedicated to their art or skill or their marathon or whatever their skill set athletically is, they live very disciplined lives, and even that's for a perishable crown. He said, but you and I are living and working for eternal crowns. So Paul says, I keep my body under. Why? He goes on and says, so I don't disqualify myself from finishing the race. That's the reason he did it. So Jesus basically said the same. My meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish the work. Or it says here in Psalm 139, verse 16, it says, speaking of God looking at us in the womb, it says, your eyes saw my unformed substance. When nobody else could make head nor tails of who we were or what we were, or whether we were male or female, whether we were tall or short, or whether we had blue eyes, before anybody knew anything, God already was watching us. And in your book, all the days of my life were written before ever they took shape, when as yet there was none of them. Or you had a plan for me, God, right from the get-go. And when nobody else knew who I was or what I was, and might not have even known that conception had taken place, or that I actually existed, or that life had been given, he said, when nobody else even realized, you did. You did. You saw me. You saw my life. You saw the purpose, the assignment, the plan that I have. And you put me into time, and you put me in change so that I could accomplish that assignment. So God does have a plan for us. And time and change are the tools we have to achieve that assignment. It says in Job 14:5, Job said a lot of wrong things in his narrative. Job didn't have what we had. This is the very first and oldest book of the manuscript we call the Bible. It was written long before Moses ever showed up. In fact, people assessed it. It was either even before the times of Noah that this was written. But the book of Job, he had a relationship with God to an extent. He knew God. God knew him. God had blessed him. But it says here, made this statement, since a man's days are already determined, and the number of his months is wholly in your control, and he cannot pass the bounds of his allotted time. Now, he got that wrong, because God doesn't pull a certain number and say, number 45, your time is up, and, you row your boat into the shore because your playtime on the lake is over. He doesn't do that. God doesn't call your number and call you out. However, God, being omniscient, knows when your time is over. He doesn't allocate that time and say it's over in that days. In fact, you can add to your life and you can subtract from your life. I mean, there's an allocated time for your life right now, but you can end that tonight. You can go down to 400 the wrong way at 150 miles an hour. You might not make it to Atlanta. Whatever. You say, well, God called my number. Nah, he didn't. You just got on the wrong side and went too fast. You can shorten your days, but you can also increase your days. Does somebody want to read Ephesians chapter 6? And somebody read verse 5. Well, you don't even have to go to verse 5. Go to verse... read from verse 1, because it's talking about children and the promise of God. 1 and 2. In Hebrew.
6, starting at 1?
Yeah.
Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ.
Where are you reading?
Ephesians 6:5.
No, you read 6:1.
Oh, sorry. I'll back up. Children, obey your parents in the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with the promise that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth.
So you can enjoy what? So one of the keys to long life is honoring and respecting your parents. Go to Proverbs chapter 3. You can add years to your life. You can extend your life. And especially when you get a hold of the plan of God for your life and the purpose of God for your life, if you're determined to finish it, God will extend those years and give you back years that maybe you lost. Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, somebody read the first 3 verses. Trust in the Lord.
My son, do not forget my teaching,
Yeah.
but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you.
Say that again.
For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Do not let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart.
Go on through, read on through. Trust in the Lord.
So you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make the path straight.
Okay. He's saying, listen to the words that I tell you and the instruction that I give you, because it will add what? Years. It'll add years to your life. Do what God says. If you live your life for the purpose of God, if you trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, he'll direct that path. He'll give you the years that you need. He'll give you the ability to change and adapt and adopt over time, through time, that you might have accomplished that assignment for your life. But he will do it, and he will help you to accomplish that. So you can actually add years to your life. There are many. We might do somewhat maybe in a couple of weeks in closing. But even the foolish people, a fool subtracts years from his life. They pursue their own ventures and find themselves with gifts and talents that were given to them by God, but misuse it, and they die early. And so you can add years and shorten years in your life. So Job was wrong when he said, God has a certain number of them, but he was right when he was declaring that our days are a certain number. God happens to know what they are, but God's not the one pulling the ticket. But he does know, because he's omniscient. He does know. And he knew us from the day we were conceived, and before we were born, he had a plan. But the response to that assignment is down to us. It's our choice. And part of that ability to accomplish that assignment, fulfill the purpose for your life, is to get a hold of time and change. Ecclesiastes, to everything there's a season. Everything is a season. And a time to every purpose under heaven. So we've got a limited time to accomplish purpose. There's a time attached to purpose. So if I asked you, what's time all about? What is time about? Purpose. It's exactly what he said. It says, there's a time to every purpose. The reason for time is to accomplish purpose. That's all it's for. That's the reason God gave it. God made it. God gave a beginning and an end, a start and a finish. And God made this allocated period out of eternity for purpose. There was a reason for it. It says in Ecclesiastes 3:17, I said in my heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. Your work is attached to your purpose, and your work and purpose is attached to a period called time. So it's so essential that we get it and grab it. Ecclesiastes 8:5, whosoever keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. Let me tell you how you know when you're getting wise. You start understanding the importance of days, skill sets, and wisdoms, and energy, and focus, and your different faculties. You begin to realize that they're for something. Done this, got the t-shirt, and you look at life and think, well, how many new things can you buy or new things can you enjoy? And then, when you get it, you're not going to enjoy it 6 months from now or 12 months from now when the novelty wears off, until another new one comes along. And even then, when you say, I gotta get it, gotta have it, you'll realize, it's not that important either. And then later on in life, you see people with endless resource, not interested in purchasing some of the things that maybe younger people would say, I gotta have it, want it, need it. And they think, I don't really need it. If this gets me from A to B, or that keeps the rain off my head, I'm happy. Because you understand, you can discern two things. Wisdom. Wisdom discerns, judgment and time. You get smarter, and you start to use it more astutely. So, wasted time is only robbing yourself. That's all. The only person that you're robbing from when you waste time is yourself. And this is what I say about other people who have no assignment or awareness of their assignment or purpose or vision for their life, and they just want to run around haphazardly, living from weekend to weekend, from one festivity season to the next, and that's all they do, and they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't have anything else to do or plan for, and they want you to join them doing it. You think, I used to do that too. I used to run those courses, and I achieved nothing, and it mounted to nothing at the end of the day. And you know what? If I waste time now, the only one that's suffering really is me. Because I now, because of wisdom and understanding, I know that there's a purpose and an assignment and a work for me to do. And you know what? I'm just not interested anymore in wasting my time or resources or gifts or talents on trivia. It's one of the ways you know you're getting smarter. So, wasting time, the only one you're robbing is self. Now, here's a wonderful portion of scripture that Solomon writes in the book of Ecclesiastes, as Solomon investigates all of the issues that mankind deem life. Solomon tries everything. And he comes to some amazing conclusions. in the wisdom God had given him. That's why God gave him wisdom. He went out and tried everything under the sun. If you want to experiment with anything, go to the book of Ecclesiastes and read the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon wrote 2 books. He wrote the book of Proverbs, which is full of wisdom. But he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. And when you read the book of Ecclesiastes, you think, what a downer. What a miserable existence. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. What's the point? Why bother? Well, it's a great book to read if you're not a believer, because it describes what life is like without God. It describes what life is like when you pursue everything but God. Solomon, in his wisdom that God gave him, decides to pursue life, or a life as others do, without God. And he ran after the things that life give or promise to make you happy. So he tries education, and he tries money, and he tries philanthropy, and he tries sex, and he tries children, and he tries a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, he itemizes each effort that he tried. And he comes to the same conclusion every time he does it. When he went to education, he came to the conclusion, the more I know, I don't know. Boy, what a vanity that was. I thought I was getting smarter, but it only made me ask more questions. And the more questions I answered, the more questions I had. And the more questions I had, the realize there's no end to it. And then when it was buying nice things, or buying homes or houses, or the best of one-of-a-kind stuff, he had it all. He stands on his balcony in one of the chapters and looks around and thinks, I have the best singers in the world, the best instruments in the world, I have all the unique animals. He looked out on it from his balcony. He had giraffes and zebras and lions and tigers and polar bears and penguins, and they were all in his backyard. And he stood there looking at them all one of a kind. I dare say he had a unicorn out there, who knows? And he stands there on his balcony and he thinks, so what? There's a zebra, there's a giraffe. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Great book to read. I love it. I think it's an excellent book of wisdom of what life offers you when you don't have an interest in God. And he comes, and then eventually in chapter 12 he comes to the conclusion, and he says, the conclusion of the whole thing, in all of my wisdom, find the purpose of God and serve him, and give your life to serving the assignment God has for your life. So he had 1,000 wives, or anyway, I mean, and you thought he had wisdom. Now you know why he had all the money as well, because he needed it. Imagine all them shoes and handbags and everything that you'd have to match. But anyway, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he makes this observation when he's talking about there's a time to every purpose under heaven. And as you go on, there's a time to sow and a time to reap, there's a time to live and a time to die, there's a time to be born, and so on. And he goes through all of these extremities, A to B, A to Z, and he names them all. And then he says this in verse 10. He said, I have seen a travail, or a burden, or a heaviness, or a responsibility. I have seen a travail which God had given to the sons of men, and it's what exercises them. Okay, it's the task that he gives them. He has made everything beautiful in his time. In other words, God burdens people with certain tasks, and he gives them a time, but the whole purpose of time is to bring it to its fruition or make it beautiful at the end. So, oh, wow, that's wonderful, that's beautiful. Well, it took time to get there. It's the sculptor, crafting the marble, or the artist painting the picture. You don't know what he's really doing until he's finished. It takes time, but when it's done, you think, oh, wonderful. So he says, he makes everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has set the world in their hearts. The word their world is the word eternity. They're all aware that life is bigger than them. He gives them all a job to do. They're tasked with a job to do, but their job in the light of eternity is small. But nonetheless, it's a task. You're burdened with it. You feel responsible for it. You're gifted to do it. And even though your time is short in the span of eternity, it's still a responsibility that God gives to you or to every man. So he says he makes everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has set eternity in their heart, so that no man can find out the work which God maketh from the beginning to the end. In other words, I live a short period of time as far as eternity is concerned. And I don't know the whole picture. All I know is that I have a part to play in the picture. I'm a stroke on the canvas, or I'm an application to the marble. God's the one who knows the bigger picture. I just have the responsibility and the burden of knowing that my life is part of that plan. But I don't know the whole plan. God does. And God has put me in time, and my life in that period is to accomplish something which God's going to make beautiful over the duration of time. It says in verse 12, I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. He says, I know really the only good thing about life, really, the only good thing about life is that you do what it was God had burdened your life to be, to do, your contribution to the bigger plan which you don't understand, but you feel nonetheless the responsibility of accomplishing it, and you feel like that's what you're doing, and to feel that you've done it, that's the joy of life. Is everybody with me? He says, I'll read 12 again, and to know that there's no good thing in them, but that a man rejoice and to do good, or to accomplish his purpose in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. This is a gift from God. Hey, God wants you to go to bed every night and sleep and enjoy your sleep, and get up and enjoy your family and enjoy the beautiful day, and take your breaks and enjoy the times that there are other things in life going on. But those other things all cater to the stability of your life, the joys of your life, the happinesses of your life, the expectations and hopes of your life for your kids and your grandkids. All of them are all to be enjoyed, but they're all connected to you getting up every day and fulfilling the assignment God has for your life. So he says, hey, enjoying life is very much a part of God's plan. Verse 13, also that every man may eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his neighbor. This is what God wants us to do. And I know that whatever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. It's God that's doing it, and that men should reverence and understand that God is the one with the bigger picture. God knows the whole picture, not us. But the joy of our life is to feel I'm being used and to get up and do it every day, and through time and change accomplish that, and enjoy my kids and my wife and the things I like and the things I like to do. But all of that is just a benefit of fulfilling the purpose God has for my life. He wants us to enjoy life and feel fulfilled. He goes on to say, and that which has been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and God requires that which is past. Or basically saying, you know what? You and I are no different than the people that preceded us. We all have a responsibility, a burden, or as he says in verse 10, a travail, something, a responsibility. The people before us did, and the people after us will. But it's our turn now. It's our turn to do what we need to do for the next generation, so that they'll have the tools to carry on and do their part in whatever the big picture is that God is doing. Let me give it to you in another version. I have seen the task which God has given to the sons of men, with which to occupy themselves. He hath made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their hearts, yet so that man will not find out the work which God had done from the beginning to the end. I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in your lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks sees good in all of his work, his labor. This is a gift of God. And I know that everything God does will remain forever. There is nothing to add to it. There is nothing to take from it. For God had so worked that men should reverence or respect or fear that plan or what he's doing. That which has been already and that which will be has already been. For God seeks what has passed by. In other words, every generation is given the same task. Assignment. One more version of it I just thought was a wee bit different. I have seen a burden God has placed on us all. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So, I conclude, there's nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. And people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruit of their labor, for these are gifts from God. And I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. God's purpose is that people should reverence him or put him first, his plan. What is happening now has happened before. What will happen in the future has happened before, because God makes the same things appear over and over again. We all have assignments. We're living out. I was given an iPhone. Somebody give that to me in this generation. We should take that, use it, the skill sets, the graces that we've got for the assignments we have, and we should then take what we have and make it better for our children and for our children's children. Then they'll come along and think, well, you know what, I know what granddad or my great-granddad did, or they were this, or they fought in World War II and won us the freedom we have today. So what are you doing with the freedom you have today? Playing video games? Oh, lovely. So your desire in life is to be a video game expert. Oh, right. God didn't give us the purpose of our life to be. There's lots of things going on. God wants each generation to pass to the next the tools to allow them to sculpt or paint or furnish or furbish what God is doing. Although no one individual knows the whole plan. God does. And we have an assignment to do in the middle of it. Success is attached to assignment. People say, what's a successful life? A successful life is when you accomplish that burden that God gave to you, to me, to us, in our lifetime to accomplish. Or we can have fun and enjoy everything else that rotates around that, but it is the assignment, it is the goal. It is the purpose for sucking oxygen. You don't know the big picture, but when you find your part in it, you'll do your part and enjoy doing it. So success is attached to assignment. So I put this down. Successful people are those who effectually manage those two elements, time and change. Time and change goes, everybody's got time and change, but true success in life are people who effectually manage those two powers. They understand time and the limitation of it, and they understand change and the purpose of it, why it was given. The ability to adapt, adopt, and get right what was wrong or develop what you don't have. And successful people, the most successful people, are people who effectually manage both of them. We all get the same 24 hours. Anybody who's alive today will all get the same 24 hours. Today and tomorrow and the next day, should God grace us. But the success of these days and those hours are more effectual to those who manage time and change, instead of just wasting it. Effectual management of time and change is planning. That's how you manage it. That's how you manage tomorrow. Say, tomorrow hasn't come. I know. But should it come? Should you get tomorrow? Should there be economic changes? And of course, it's another day on the calendar. And I think yesterday was 2-0-2-2-20-2-2. Everything was twos yesterday. Yeah, that was a very unique moment. There'll never be another one. That's it. It was over. So if you wrote a check yesterday that said, 0-2-2-2022, you can't write that again. That's gone. Just a unique moment in time. It's passing and whatever. But effectual management of time and change is planning. So you plan. What's the plans for tomorrow? What's the plans for next week, this year? So I don't know if next year, I guarantee you this, if you find the assignment God has for your life, the purpose and the potential that God has for you, and you start to walk toward it, God will give you whatever it takes to finish it, because it's all about finish. And you can extend your life by just intending to do what God called you to do. God will give you back years that you lost in ignorance. He'll give it back if you understand it and look for it. So, effectual management of time is change and planning. This is making sense to everybody? All right. You can't control time and change. They're happening. But you can plan how to use it. You can't control it, but you can plan how to use it. How will you use tomorrow? How will you use next week? How will you manage the resources that you have in the days or weeks or months or years to come? Or should this happen or should that happen? How will you do it? Well, you can't control the next 24 hours. You can't control the changes that are happening socially, economically, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You can't stop that. However, you can plan how to use it by how you prepare for it. And this is where a lot of people miss it. They don't know how to plan. They don't even know that they should. And yet if you don't, next week will pass you by and it'll go. And you won't even, sometimes you don't even miss it. You don't miss it until you're looking for time to do something, and then you realize you don't have enough of it. Just people are not aware of it. The devil has so preoccupied us with other things that it passes us by so quickly. I often hear Lucy, and we've said it to our children, and we've said it when we pastored. We used to tell, when we talk about children and raising kids, just hug them and kiss them as many times as you can. You don't need a reason to do it. You don't need a reason to hold them. You don't need a reason to tell them you love them. You don't need a reason to kiss them. Every chance you get. I mean every chance. Intentionally. And we've always done it. We still do it with our kids, with our son and daughter, and with our grandkids, goodness me. We just shower them with the awareness of our love and care and plan and intent. So important that you just use time, you prepare for it right. It comes so quickly. And the reason we do it is because we have often said, I remember when they were this size, where did the time go? How many of you have ever quoted that? Where did the time go? I remember there were little I was carrying in a case for Adam this morning, my son, into his house, and I was carrying his case and I was carrying something else, and he said I was carrying the heavier case, he was carrying the light one. And they were just back from a business trip. And so I'm carrying the heavy case, and Adam turns back and says, "Hey, Dad, do you want me to carry that?" And I said, "Son, I carried you and that further than this in the years gone by." And then I said, "But you weren't that heavy and you weren't that fat." And it was a joke, and we laughed about it. But I remember a time when I would have carried something and had him in my arms at the same time, and here he is now. He's a man with his own family and his own responsibilities and passions and purpose of life. And I sort of looked at him ahead of me, thought, oh, how quickly the years have fleeted by. Because I do remember the times carrying him in my arms. Couldn't carry him in my arms. He could carry me, but I couldn't carry him anymore. So, the years fly so quickly. So, you can't control time and change, but you can plan how to use it by how you prepare for it. Planning harnesses and regulates time and change. It's why God planned. Anything God planned, it was planned for a period called time. Everything God did, He did it in a period called time. That's why God planned. Because He harnessed and regulated it by planning. And it didn't just pass. It was strategic. It existed for purpose. It existed for assignment. It existed to accomplish something. And we've all got a part to play in that. Planning, number one, time conforms to it. It doesn't stop, but it'll conform to it. You can use time. You say, well, it's 24 hours, but I'm going to use it for such and such. And when you decide to use it, it'll conform to your use. But if you don't plan it, it'll just pass you by. But it will conform to your planning. Planning conforms time. Does that make sense? All right. And secondly, change serves it. Change serves planning. So changes are happening. They're going to happen anyway. But if you can plan it, you can alter where those changes speed up or slow down, or what type of change you want to happen. It's happening anyway, but you can actually use change to serve the assignment that you have by adapting and adopting whatever you need to do, or developing whatever you need to do. So planning is the key. Time conforms to it. Change serves it. Yes?
Would you take a personal experience or a personal example of those two? If you've got one off the top of your head?
Time conforms to it. Well, I mean, in any of our lives, people can exist. As I said, we all get the same 24 hours a day. So when you look back at tomorrow, and I look back at tomorrow, it was 24 hours that you had and 24 hours that I had. And there may be others around that had the same 20. Anybody who existed yesterday all had the same 24 hours. Not everybody used that period, that time, that 24 hours, to serve their interest or their intent or their destiny or purpose or assignment, because they didn't know it, weren't aware of it, and the day passed them. But I spent my day preparing for today, preparing for something I've got in the morning, and then again tomorrow, later on tomorrow morning, and getting prepared for Saturday, and planning for next week and other stuff and things. So I'm using every day, but not everybody uses the same day. So I get up in the morning and I take the same 24 hours, and because I've planned it, I now use the 24 hours to conform to what I wanted to do for me. It's happening, but I'm now using it to conform to what I want to achieve and accomplish, not just yesterday or today, but down in the future. And I do that, and I harness that time. I make that time conform to me. I can't stop it, but it conforms to my assignment. It conforms to my will. It conforms to my desire, because I plan what I'm going to do with it. Okay? So now, although it's still going, it's now conforming to me because I planned. And change serves it. So I don't know what changes happened. There's all sorts of changes happened since last week, or changes since we came here to America. There's all sorts of changes have gone on with governments and whatever. But you know what? I'm not, there's been social changes that have gone on for the last couple of years. There's been, a pandemic. There's been fear. There's been worry and concern, and debts, and all sorts of stuff. There's been unemployment. There's been all sorts of changes going on. But because of planning, I made a decision that time's going to conform to the destiny and the purpose that I have for my life. I'm here to minister the gospel. I'm here to change and help conform people's optics to a more revelatory God optic of what he's trying to tell us to do. And in spite of the fact that, all of this was going on, and fears and worries and concerns, I was using time, still using it the way I planned it, but I was also taking the changes that are out there, and I was molding the message and the content and the word to help minister part of my assignment in that 2-year period where I was trying to talk about things that were encouraging or insightful or revelatory or faith-filled and so on and so forth, for the audience that I had, to keep them going through time and change with the right perspective. I was trying to help people navigate change.
Let me throw one example.
I don't know if I can give you a good example, but
I'm just saying.
Oh.
Suppose you go out tomorrow and you're driving down the road, and some guy drives through a red light and smashes into your car, and you're badly injured. How does change serve? Because your life changed when that guy ran into you, and you now physically are able to do some of the things that you had planned, or you are in fact.
Well, unfortunately, it's a hypothetical situation.
I understand.
All right.
But you mentioned physically earlier.
Yeah, but it's hypothetical in the sense that, you can always think the worst. I mean, what happens if a meteorite comes and hits Alpharetta tonight? I mean, this was a waste of time. But does that mean we don't plan what we were doing today, and I didn't plan for tomorrow, even though the meteorite hits the Alpharetta tonight and we're all gone? I'll tell you what, if I had had it tomorrow, I would have used it right. So there are things that are in this manuscript that talk about God giving his angels charge over you to enable you to fulfill assignment and purpose. There are things here that God says that his angels encamp around his people. There are things here that guarantee you a finish if God gives you a start, if you will comply with the principles that govern your potential. So I have no intentions of or planning to, and I don't know how many accidents I've missed. I don't. I always say this, and when we come to church, a lot of times it's the way it's a mindset. Let me explain this. When you come to church, people say, if they're given an offering, let's say something that's very dear to people is their money. So, and you see the church out there trying to get people to give to something, all right? Or you go to an event and somebody will say, well, we're raising money for people who have had hard luck in their life, or people that, don't have enough bread to eat because, well, they're not working, or they're this. And we come up with all sorts of, physical reality of people that are having difficulties and problems. And they say, if you'll give $100, you'll help those people come out from under what they're under, or you'll save another individual down the street. People say, I've got to give to that because I can see the need, right? And they give to it. When you go to church and say, well, if you just want to give in to the church, people say, I'd rather give to the guy under the bridge, or I'd rather give to this organization over here that are giving. And here's the reason why. You don't see the divorces that never happened because people went to church and listened to the word. Because they never got divorced. They didn't get divorced because they got good counsel and love and attention and community, and they never got divorced. And so you didn't see that. Or the kids that went to college and didn't go astray and didn't do drugs and didn't overdose, or didn't become this, or didn't become that, you never truly see the effects of what didn't happen. Because it didn't happen. But the reason it didn't happen was somebody intervened before it ever did get to happen. But it's much easier to give to stuff that has already happened because we see it's happened and we think, I got to give to that because I can fix that. The truth is, you are reactively giving instead of proactively giving. And so we see life many times from, well, this could happen, that might happen. The truth is, I don't know how many car wrecks I've missed. I just got to trust God that I didn't see any of them because I'm still here. I don't know how many junctions I slowed down before, or turns I took, or other routes I found I had to go on because of a journey or something that happened, or a flight was delayed, and so I never give out. Lucy will tell you. When I go to an airport and they say, it's delayed, I say, fine. I don't know why it's been delayed. I went to Africa one time, and when I arrived in the country, spent a lot to get there, and when I got there, they deported me. They wouldn't let me into the country. I didn't complain. Thought, hey, maybe I don't need to be here. Maybe I arrived here and I shouldn't be here and I need to be out. It was in the middle of elections. Maybe I need to leave. So you just don't know. We don't know. That's what he's saying in that Ecclesiastes. We don't know the whole big picture. All we know is that I have a part to play, and that if I want to, God will keep me and protect me and preserve me and my family until I do it. So I'm not expecting to get hit from the side or the rear. Do I get car insurance? Yes. It's required of me to do that in case I do something foolish or hurt somebody. So we're not perfect, but we plan. And we trust God then to fill in the gaps. So I don't know if that answers your question, but no, I'm not planning to be disabled anytime shortly. I plan to be around and intentionally leave when it's time to go. So let me has anybody got any other questions on any of this? Anybody got any comments on it? I know I might sound like I'm repeating the same, and I sort of in a sense am, because teaching is line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Another wee bit, let's recap another wee bit, let's go back, say it again, another wee bit. And you may not realize it, but it's actually how you teach. It's actually how you learn. And before you know it, 5 weeks and 6 weeks into it, you'll have a much deeper concept of time than most people that'll do life with you at work in the morning or that'll pass you on the street. You'll be aware of planning. You'll be aware of what you're going to do for the summer, what you're going to do for next Christmas, or for next year if a meteorite doesn't hit Alpharetta, or whatever. And you start to use time constructively. Once you get this concept, I can then talk to you about vision. Because vision without planning will never happen. It will never happen. Let me just show you this, and I'll bring this up next week. Let me do this. Your dream is only a dream until you have a plan. That's all it is. You sit there and look out the classroom window. He's a daydreamer. Nothing wrong with it. Dreaming is great. God's a dreamer. But a dream is only a dream until you have a plan. A plan is what takes a dream and makes it a reality. A plan is what's going to take a vision and make it happen. Dreams don't change your life. Plans do. If we can understand them last two statements, then we can talk about vision. Because vision doesn't happen without a plan. That's why I'm teaching planning first. And vision won't change your life. It won't change it. So have a great vision. Brilliant. I want to tell you my vision. Brilliant. Hey, I'm going into the bank. I'm building a house. I want 1.7 million, if you don't mind. I've got a house. Here, I drew it on a piece of paper. And the bank manager will say, lovely. And have you talked to an architect? No. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great drawing. I think I did pretty good. I was good at art at school. And have you checked, how much do you earn? Well, what's that got to do with it? I mean, it's a beautiful, look at that picture. And you come in this door and you go out that door and it faces the south and it gets the sunlight. And you say, hey, pal, come back to me when you have a plan. Come back to me when you have the plans for the house and the plan to pay it before you ask me for a loan. It's not enough to say I have a dream. It's not enough to say I have a vision. Bring a plan. And this is what God's going to ask you to do. When He starts to talk to your heart about the purpose for your life and the assignment attached to it, He's going to say to you, what's your plan? Now that you know it, what are you going to do? So when we came to Atlanta, we knew what our vision was. We planned to press into the next phase of it, but we didn't know where it was taking us just then. But He said, all you got to do is show me your plan and I'll order your steps. I'm sitting here tonight because we planned to do something, but because I don't know the future, I've got to trust God to order the steps of the plan. But if you're going to deal with God, you have to deal with plans. That's how God deals with people. And it's why God doesn't deal with some people like they want Him to, because they don't have a plan. Is that all right? Pardon?
Purpose, vision, plan.
Yeah, or purpose, potential, and plan. That's really the way it works. Purpose is the why for your life. Purpose is why you exist. God has that. Potential is the abilities God give you to accomplish why you exist. They're all different. We all have different skill sets, but they're attached to why we exist. God put that potential, and potential is undiscovered abilities. Once you discover them, it's not potential. Potential is still stuff that you haven't done yet. And then planning is how you get that potential to work. But it doesn't work without a plan. Plan is what pulls it out of you. It's a plan. And the thing about it is, when you plan, because you don't know the big picture, God's part in it, God will say, you go ahead, show me a plan. That's a brilliant plan. We just adjust that one a wee bit. Keep coming. Come on, keep going. Yep, keep on. And then, I know you weren't expecting that, but keep on coming. Let me help you with your plan. I want you to plan it, because it's the God factor in us. God wants us to develop the skill sets that He put in us that makes us in His image and after His likeness. That's how it works.